Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel and my first YouTube video. My name is Paul McAllister, and I have many decades of experience as a professional photographer. I've run commercial photo labs, and today I run the education programs for the nation's oldest camera store. So I have a little bit of stuff to draw from as far as experience and helping others with photography in general. So my goal is to help you, the viewers of this channel, to maybe avoid some of the mistakes that I've watched myself and others make over and over again, and just frankly grow in your photography and grow in your journey a little bit quicker. So why am I here today? My goal today is to help you understand what I believe are the biggest mistakes photographers are making when it comes to getting their photographs to look like they want their photographs to make, or to look. I mean, we all have been here, right? We've all watched another photographer, we admire this person, we follow this person, whatever it happens to be, and we can't figure out why our photographs don't look like theirs. So the number one, I believe, the number one failure that photographers, especially beginners, have here. And I know failure is a harsh word, but you know what? That's what it is. This is a fail because when we do this, we are going to fail almost every single time. And what is that? That is believing that if I match my gear to their gear, my photographs will look like their photographs. It really doesn't work this way. It rarely, if ever, plays out. We go out and we buy stuff, and guess what? Our pictures don't look like theirs. Why? Well, first of all, let's take this apart. Let's look at the lens. So, number one, I buy the Sigma Art 35-1.4 that she's using, and my pictures will look the same as hers. Probably not. Now, to be fair, putting a good lens in front of your camera is never a bad advice. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you don't need good glass in front of your lens. Good glass in front of your camera. But what I will tell you is it may not be the big difference you believe it is. And in fact, it may end up just being very little or no difference. Now, depending on what you're doing, yes, you might see a difference. But believe it or not, even the little 18 to 55, the pariah of lens, right? The little kit lens that comes bundled with the Rebels and the lower end Nikons and things like that. That lens can produce good photographs in the right circumstances. This picture's taken with them. This picture's taken with it. It can produce good photographs. It's not the lens. Again, does this help to make a great photograph? Sure, of course it does. But the lens alone, just going out and spending $1,000, $2,000 to buy this new lens because the person whose work I admire looks good, and therefore it must be because they're using this lens. Right? That's how we think. We all do this. And it's good advice to put a good lens in front of your camera. If you have the money to buy good glass, absolutely buy good glass. But what really is the difference between, the better lens, the Sigma lens or the whatever, over a lesser expensive lens? Well, typically when you buy good glass, you are buying, just that, good glass. The glass itself is better. It's made differently than cheaper glass with different elements, and the processes simply cost more to make that glass. It's coated differently. And because it's coated differently, those coatings cost more money. And what do the coatings do? And what do these other aspects do? They go into, making sure I have better contrast, better flare reduction. So I get in those glary conditions. I don't get the ghosting and the halo stuff going on as bad with a better lens. Those are real things, right? those lenses are going to have probably larger maximum apertures, and they're also going to be more structurally sound. They're made for pro use. So as such, the housings themselves are metal or really high density, polycarbonate or something that's going to handle more abuse, and they're weather sealed and all those things. So yeah, good glass matters. But again, it probably isn't going to be, wow, look at my pictures now. They look like hers. Why? Because that's not the missing element. If it's not the glass, it must be the body, right? I've watched the YouTube videos. I've watched this person. I've seen all the professionals. They're all shooting full frame cameras. So therefore, I must need the full frame camera. Wrong again. Now, this is, all of these pieces add up. Absolutely. But is that the missing element? What does a full frame camera do over the APS-C sensor, or maybe even a Micro Four Thirds sensor? What are the difference? In my role at the camera store, I am blessed. I know what the difference between sensors are. We get some of the best education ourselves from the manufacturers, from the tech reps themselves. I understand what the differences are. So please don't, put in the comments, well, you don't know the difference between the. Of course I know the difference between the sensors. But is that going to be the make or break in your pictures? No, probably not. Now, a full frame sensor is as having larger real estate to work with. I'm probably going to have larger pixels, and larger pixels are photo sites, if you will. But the pixels, if they're larger, they actually do better in low light. So is a full frame sensor going to do better in low light than a crop sensor? Yeah, it is. But is it going to be the missing element of, wow, look at my pictures now, I bought the full frame? Now, to be sure, a lot of photographers will move from a Rebel, right? And I'm just using that. I'm not trying to pick on Canon, but it's probably the most prolific camera ever made. So let's be realistic here. You start with a Rebel with the kit lens, so it has a small aperture, and it doesn't do so well in low light and whatever. And then you go out and you buy the 5D or whatever it is, the R6, whatever camera you buy. Full frame, now with a good piece of glass probably attached to the front of it. And are your pictures probably going to look better inherently? To some degree, yes. But you don't need a full frame camera to take great photographs. That's, again, not the missing element. Here's a photograph taken with a crop sensor camera. Here's another one taken with a crop sensor camera. You can take fabulous photographs with the crop sensor cameras. So if it's not my lens and it's not my camera body, or in other words, it's not my equipment, what is it? Must be the editing, right? So this is probably the second rabbit hole, right? We climb out of one rabbit hole and we go right down the next one. Editing. It's how he or she edits their pictures that have that look. I can't tell you. I mean, I run groups on Facebook and things like that. I can't tell you how often I see posts about trying to find my editing style. I get that building a style is solid advice. I mean, I have some good personal friends that, boy, when I see their work online, just like that, I know it's theirs. I don't even have to look to see whose it is. I know it's theirs because of their distinctive style of shooting and editing and things. Their work stands out. And if you can build your style in that way, by all means do. Because then you have something fairly unique, and your clients are going to know what they're coming to you for. And I get that. That's all solid. Right? You don't want to go into a restaurant and wonder if you're going to get good food, bad food, what the food is going to taste like today. That's how we work. We want to have a style. But is the editing the missing ingredient here? Is it what has been missing in your photographs and why they don't look, you're struggling to get your work looking the way you want it to, and it's just failing? Do you believe it's because you're not editing the pictures the right way? Well, she's using, I sent her a text, I sent her a message. Hey, what are you doing with your pictures? And she responded back, oh, I'm using the XYZ preset pack from, this photographer, that photographer, whatever. Okay, here's my $129. Give me the preset pack. Is that's not going to answer your problem. That's not going to do it. Again, is having that preset pack good to have? Well, probably, sure. You can make your own presets. You can do these things yourself. You can develop your own style. But you can also buy presets. That's fine. But the chances are that's not going to be the key to why your pictures, why you can't get them looking like you want them to look. Because that hasn't been the missing element. I drive a Crown Victoria, Ford Crown Victoria. It's a big boat of a car. I love it. Now, I can't get that car to go 200 miles an hour. I simply can't. It won't do it. If I put the Pirelli tires that are on the Lamborghini on my car, that's not going to make it go 200 miles an hour. You know why? Because the Pirelli tires weren't why the Lamborghini goes 200 miles an hour in the first place. I'm fixing the wrong problem. Now, to be fair, if you put my tires off my Crown Vic on the Lamborghini, is it going to handle well? Probably not. No, for sure. It's all of the pieces come together. But the real missing element of why my Crown Vic doesn't go 200 miles an hour is not because it doesn't have the right tires on it. So your editing, your lens, your body is probably not going to fix the problem. Okay, so if it's not that, what is it? What is the key? What is the missing element? Well, as luck would have it, I'm here to tell you that. I'm here to hopefully unlock the entire secret to photography right here in just a minute. Of course, I've strung you along this line to keep you watching, so, that's how this works. But hopefully you've learned a little bit along the way. And there will be, by the way, more videos on lenses. I'm going to talk about lenses. Lenses are important. I'm not saying that they're not important. I'm not going to tell you that bodies aren't important. I'm not going to tell you that editing isn't important. But those are probably not the things that are missing in your photographs. You know what's missing in your photographs? Almost assuredly. Here's the key. Here's the secret. It is hidden in the word right in front of you. It is hidden in the word photograph. And it's not really disguised all that much, to be honest with you. It's not hidden that well. Photograph. That literally, in today's language, means to record light. Photo is the Greek word for light. Phono happens to be the Greek word for sound, or almost identically. There's a little bit of translation in there, but not much. In its earliest translation, graph was probably to scribe or to write or to paint. But in today's language, we'll just call it record. A phonograph is a recording of sound, is it not? Yes, it is. So does it not follow that a photograph is a recording of light? Yes, of course it does. Now, this is the key. Photograph, record light. This is where so many photographers make their mistake. Because they don't worry about the light that is in front of their camera. Now, let's just take a step back. I mentioned phonograph, a recording of sound, right? You've heard me talking now for 15 minutes or whatever I've been talking. What do you think it would sound like if I stood in a recording studio, here's my mic, you got the big fancy mixing board there with all the knobs and sliders and little meters and all that cool stuff that I don't know how all that stuff works, but that doesn't matter. I'm not a sound recording engineer. I'm a light recording engineer. I'm a photographer. The sound recording engineer knows what all that stuff is. But you know what the sound recording engineer is going to do? I'm going to go in there, I'm going to try to sing opera, and guess what? It ain't going to work. There's nothing on that mixing board that sound engineer can do to make this sound like a classic opera singer. The problem isn't that they're using the wrong equipment. The problem isn't that they've set the settings wrong. The problem is this. The problem is the sound going into the microphone. But how many times do we apply this same logic to our photographs? How many times do we think about the light coming in and say, you know what, that's just not good light? So I deal with this all the time, where I see photographers, I hear photographers say, you know, I'm going to this venue, I'm going to this situation, I'm going here, this is the scenario. What settings do I use for this? It's like, for that, you set the camera back into the camera case. That's what you said. Now, of course, is that kind of snarky? Sure, of course it is. But the truth is that you cannot record lousy light and expect a good recording. You can't. Any more than you can record lousy sound and have good recording. So that's the key. That is the secret to great photographs. Because just to prove this, what do you think of this photograph? Is it okay? I mean, it may not be award-winning, but it is okay. That photograph is taken with a broken camera. I'm serious. It's a broken camera. I work in a camera store, right? Customer brings in this old 70, well, it was not that old at the time, 7D camera that has an electronic issue on the motherboard. It literally, if you attach a Canon lens to it and try to use it, it bricks the camera. It locks up. It won't do a thing. So when you use this camera, you either can't mount a Canon lens to it electronically, it won't work, or you can mount it and only turn it part way, or you can adapt another lens, which is what's happened here. I've actually taken this with an adapted broken lens as well. And you know what it's lit with? It's lit with a flashlight. I'm not kidding you. It's lit with a flashlight. Now, do I suggest that you go to your next event? You're probably sitting there thinking, it's like, this guy's telling me I should go buy a broken camera and a broken lens and take a flashlight and go shoot a wedding. No, of course not. I'm not telling you that. I don't suggest you go to your next event that you're shooting or whatever it happens to be you're shooting. Here, I'm here to do the family today. I got my broken lens. I got my broken camera. I got my flashlight. I'm good to go. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that with the right skill and understanding, you can take good photographs with almost anything. That's what I'm trying. That's the point I'm trying to get across. And the point, this is the mistake where, this is the biggest mistake, in my opinion, that people make. They don't concentrate on light. Photograph, record light. We have to build the foundation there. And if we build the foundation there, everything will fall into place. So now, great, I've given you the secret, right? It's all about light, which it is. But you can't start recording good light if you don't recognize good light. You don't know what you don't know. So how do you start seeing good light? How do you learn about light? How do you pay attention to light? Well, here's one of the kind of snags we run into. For most of us, vision is our primary sense. Now, I'm certainly not trying to be ableist. If there's any disabled folks out there listening to this who aren't sighted, I don't mean to offend. But if you're watching a YouTube video, chances are you're a sighted person. And as a sighted person, what is your primary sense? Your vision. When we hear something, what do? We look around and we try to find what we're hearing. When we feel something on our arm, what do? We look at our arm. We use these other senses to guide our primary sense, which is vision. Okay, that's all good and fine, but here's the snag. Our brains, because of this, have learned to filter out an awful lot of important information. Now, for the average person, it may not be that important, but you and I, we're photographers. Photograph, record light. What we are seeing, the light we are seeing, is important to us. So as such, we have to retrain our brains to start seeing the light in front of us. We can do this. And I can, just really quickly, I can prove that this is a thing. Have you ever bought the new car? The new red shiny little Toyota or whatever you bought. Suddenly what happens? You start seeing all the other little red Toyotas on the street that you hadn't previously noticed. You know why? Your brain is now tuned into that. You can tune your brain into seeing light the same way. I encourage you to, when you're watching television, when you're watching films, commercial, movies are one of the greatest ways to really appreciate light. Now, it comes with a warning. You'll be, if you start doing this, you'll be watching the movie and halfway through you won't even realize what the plot is because you've been so focused on the light and where it's coming from. But start paying attention. Where are the highlights? Where are the shadows? When you're looking at me, have you noticed yet that the light behind me is a different color than the light that's on me? Have you noticed yet that I have a backlight on me that helps me stand out from the background? Are these things that you immediately picked up on? Because this is what you need to start looking at. You need to start paying attention to the light in front of you. Where are shadows? Where are highlights? What's causing what to happen? Is it hard light? Is it soft light? The transitions between shadows and highlights. These things. And when you start paying attention to these things, you will literally start to see the light. And when you do, and I've watched this happen, it's so cool to watch this happen with other photographers. I've trained so many other photographers and I've helped other photographers. And when they start seeing the light, it's transitionary. It is, I can see it not only in their photographs, but just in them. You can hear it in their voices. They start talking differently about light. It's like being educated about anything different. One of my favorites is actually watching Pixar cartoons. Now you're probably thinking, okay, this guy's completely lost it. What in the world do Pixar cartoons? And by the way, I'm not sponsored by Pixar. If anybody out there is from Pixar and you want to send me money, hey, here I am. But I'm not sponsored by Pixar. But I love watching Pixar cartoons. Why? Because they're lit well. Now, they're cartoons. How can a cartoon be lit well? Well, that's kind of a confusion in terms. But they are created with good lighting. Ironically, or maybe probably not so ironically actually, Pixar, started by Steve Jobs, right? Pixar's promo piece was a thing called Luxo. Lux, light. It was about a lamp. Actually about 2 lamps, but you can watch it. Look it up if you're not familiar. Their promo piece was all about light. I think that their software and their designers and their artists have always been very, concentrated on light. And I believe personally, and I can't speak, on an educated basis about why Pixar is as successful as they are. Certainly they have good scripts and they get good talent and all that. But I think a lot of it has to do with how the thing is built in the first place, and that the foundation is light. So that's just my 2 cents worth, but in either case, if you watch Pixar cartoons, you'll see what I'm talking about. They're lit well. So lighting is the key. If you start concentrating on lighting, and now with this knowledge, when you start looking at the other photographers whose work you follow, whose work you admire, I think what you're going to start noticing is that, their lighting is so different than my lighting. But if you weren't aware of it, you may just walk right past that because, again, our brain has been programmed just by life to filter out a lot of stuff that it doesn't deem necessary. So we don't necessarily see light the way that we need to as photographers. So I'm going to leave you with this little tidbit. These are the words of probably the man who was on this planet who knew more about photography than certainly I and the majority of other people out there probably ever will. If you don't know who George Eastman is, George Eastman is the founder of Eastman Kodak. The guy knew a little bit about photography, and clearly he understood it was about light. So thanks for joining me. I hope you learned something. I hope it was enough that you're going to hit the like button down there. You're going to hit the subscribe button. You're going to do all that stuff. Follow me, etc. All the stuff you know what to do. And I hope you're going to come back. There's going to be lots more videos. I'm going to be talking about more about lenses and more about cameras and more about light and more about speed lights and more about studio lights and more about natural light and all kinds of other stuff. Got a lot to talk about. This is just the first step. Have a great day.